FBI has rules of people who make confessions about the CIA on Facebook. And people then they jump in and say, "Oh, we have the right to lie." In other words, they're using it where they don't have the right to lie. They're fabricating evidences in databases as time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries. A whole bunch of judges and prosecutors are personally and professionally involved with the same house slash S with more World Trade Center predicate acts with the news. They pretend people make allegations while changing and faking, hiding and obfuscating what they say instead about relative predicate acts. Short words about it. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. WFSB has a number of people, a number of ways involved with the CIA and with the FBI and with other countries' intelligence, foreign and domestic military. The differences of the guilt of the intelligence at the networks like WFSB are next to them or conjunctive to it. A Jonathan Mayano recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's involved with sequence ships and federal evidences crimes with intelligence families near me. I didn't even tell him that. And he doesn't even know the extent of it. I don't even know. In other words, he's got rules with courts. You know, a bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court involved with sequence ships, federal evidence of crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and they're pretending they're legitimate roles with investigators. They're putting fake transcripts in databases. They're faking, changing, and hiding what the actual value of what was communicated online is. And that's hard to discern sometimes too, because they have their rules making rape threats and confessions and demonstrations with the same ones involved with the child abusers, leaders of kids, families that force such years apart. WTNH has FBI that sources that have been planting evidences, fake ties to me with their sources at corners of streets and next to campuses with sexual and medical offenders of kids, where they are forcing it roles that way too. A bunch of prosecutors and judges, people with the name Delafera and Spada, have some sexual and medical offenders of kids on Ridge Road involved with the corner of the street and conjunctions to a Paul Kelly involved with some Air Force people and regular pilots at the same time brought up on my street by people years apart with untimely deaths and strangers tied to the same house slash us seeking me out to make confessions. And when I don't respond, they pretend other. Then they confirm it on Facebook and they take my Facebook page away. Then they had to pretend other reasons, do all kinds of things, and then pretend that's the reason why. These agencies are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw collusion slash S with a breaching methods use of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, foreign and domestic, and the interbranch and the intelligence tied to them with the same timed collusion slash S. You think the kids are going to be able to handle the law, the syntax of the law, the nature of the law properly in the future while you have a computer the syntax for you guys are leaving out all the World Trade. You have self-value collusion with World Trade Center predicate acts, and not even realizing because you're using other people's information. Then you get mad at them, leaving out, and you're screening the guilt with the breaching methods involved. Everyone's an insane maniac with passions descriptions or with calmness. It's discernible relative to takes on black and white. Exactly the ulterior from how nature shows us to use either one to speak about that properly. But then we meet how a bunch of fakes are right where anyone wants to make a proper subject treatment and or exceptions. In other words, we would have, there are things our founders left declassified for us to have communicated for themselves. And right where those things are, like James Madison's plan, right where that's the only correct answer, they have with the breaching method for us, and with James Madison's counter to it for us too, distinctly. But everyone was forcing, they have James Madison's roles replaced with that which was forced by the breaching method. Them but to pretend it was against the T-tax. Some people to pretend it was against the king. Some people, in other words, it was none of that. They had a fact-human nature slavery of themselves as the kings. Any leader, no matter how powerful they could get, even a pharaoh, No one has parts with slavery unless locations, areas, and states are already criminally foreign influence. Tactically, delusion is raw. Per that plan that came from since before religious messengers were born. And forced tricks heard while it was forcing, tricking, hurting, and persuading everyone to blame other things, others, ourselves for which it caused. And then the counter to that proper, also blaming other things, others, ourselves for what it caused self value. And that is being used remotely by the breaching method more and more. This is a pseudo sophistication with the suits and ties. The counter is an exception. So the CIA has a number of people, even if they made it up, they have recorded collusions with the FBI Director Robert Luskin and his co-defendants and their family members in a 2006 district court case are also collusion/S with all sides of criminal and civil cases in the interbranch and the intelligence at the same time, putting in the same sequence shifts and self-value collusion/S with predicate acts. And the self-value part is relative to recorded how it was manifested. That it wouldn't be if you guys would follow mandated law. We'll correct the criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature from the delusions also juxtaposed with the syntax and the nature of Mr. Brennan and the rest of the CIA involved with Eric Jensen, forced, tricked her, persuaded to collusion with them with people with whiting forensics and FBI Director Robert Luskin and a bunch of Smith families involved with the judicial branch offices in ways with that bring in the Smith, even if they're not related to that Smith. He's involved pretending people are making attacks on the interbranch after they brought it up. And they refuse to get on paper. They're offensively telling you they don't put paper. Well, we don't show paper because then we won't get a conviction. Oh, you're not going to get a conviction. Well, you're not supposed to get it through tricks. And you're not supposed to stay collusion/S with the prisons hiding their collusions with the crime scenes. And then to cover that up, torturing the real and the fake criminals being there. And why? A serial killer increasingly has had organized crimes, collusions with many people involved with his prison, a Sandy Hook prison, who are also involved intercities and interstates and internationally with the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices. Also with the same house, increasingly with Wethersfield police, forging names, switching names, falsifying police reports, and refusing to identify and get on paper with the interbranch because they've been stacking falsified evidences and fake transcripts into databases and influencing acting tied to that through people's whole lifetimes. These are people involved before and after the World Trade Center attack with predicate acts, the same ones I've been telling you about, including the Ray Cololo syntax. Even if that wasn't Ray Cololo, they're involved with that, with their syntax on YouTube. Involved also with and the news is pretending the president is making a list of people. They're covering sequence shifts. I've been asked, get me off since the World Trade Center attack. Foreign and domestic families have been attaching me to fake and changed communications with themselves and interbranch. And I saw their motivations recorded, and we could all discern it. But it also shows that all sides of criminal and civil cases, the prisons, even before they were in those court cases, there were collusions with the crime scenes, including body dumping spots years apart and reported totally different killers involved that time use/S of the same things at once. Increasingly involved collusions with the news still at the same time with the interbranch don't get onto paper. They can't afford to have what's discerned. Forgiveness is because they're only capable of being and haven't been used remotely. For what I caught done next to each of the campuses I went and other people went for a method. And the differences of they even have, thank God they have some ways, the federal to look into to stop all the things associated with this. But it's also collusion with the federal that way. The difference of it too was the difference of the states, locations, areas, and states names, or the federal names. The difference of guilt with that too is also used to hide behind and through by not just by a whole bunch of other countries. All tactical military from how the nature holds us unity, grouped value, and individual value. It's a hyper invisible but still discernible body of value / value progression system that cannot be mimicked without it demonstrating, as the breaching method knew that it is mimicking it knew. So it made roles, styles, needs, and nature reliant upon those demonstration / s blame the other things, others ourselves, the part with the negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. In the timed collusion / s with criminally foreign influence, criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, like facts and truth treatments, and exceptions denial. The CIA has worse than criminal incompetence with black pupils, whites of eyes, and black-white syntax. And regarding the scientific impositions, to say the least, upon the people of the suburbs, let alone of the cities. The suburbs were designed by a torture, extortion, factory nature, slavery method, entrenched. That appears to be debatable because a breaching method employed already to positions pretending it's debatable, while relying upon criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw principles, treatments of American history. For example, James Madison had declassified why and how. Our founders, plural, did not have the security, but to let us know the names of our founders. The only one they had the security to let us know the name of was James Madison. And even once he was then a president / chief also, he still did not have free speech. They have his plan replaced at founding locations, narratives across the country. It is manifest how this is discernible from here. Black people's peer who disbelieves. They switch names and forge names into branch. Already they recorded themselves dishonestly and with their screening their actual motives, even when with real ones propagated right there, because by the breaching method, why and how they don't allow writing before cases. Their collusions with another body has collusion with all natures of crime scenes. And then through it, all natures of investigators were used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought the same way originally. This is also relative to why and to how they could be motivated to replace what our founders left to be communicated with the founding locations and board themselves, black people's peer, who disbelieves.